Welcome back to the sanctuary. Last week we peeled back the layers of silent suffering, those quiet battles that so many of us are fighting in order to uphold a myth that is no longer true. So today, we're going to be getting into even more detail and we're going to get even more specific about how we do that. And today we're talking about the mask. We're talking about the mask that we all decide to put on and take off. It's the mask that we put on to show the world in order to keep ourselves protected. We use this mask in order to navigate different situations and to navigate different spaces. Sociologists call this code switching. We alter our speech. We alter our mannerisms. We even change our own personality even when it is a direct conflict with who we are truly inside, in order to fit in to seem non-threatening or maybe even just simply to survive. So today, we're going to be exploring the mental toll of presenting a different persona to the world and even worse, to ourselves. The concept of the mask is deeply enrooted in our experience. We learn it at a very young age. It could just be as subtle as a shift in our voice, the way we talk to one another, the way we perform in front of one another, the way we tone down our voice, or even our laughter in certain settings. These subtle changes, even changes in your posture and in the way you greet people, especially when we're in new spaces, uncharted territory, in spaces that you're not 100% sure if you even belong there. We're going to get to some of that a little later. It's unspoken, almost automatic, like a set of inscribed instructions buried inside of your subconsciousness. In one space, we are full, 100% authentically ourselves. Unapologetic, open, free. You are the best version of yourself at this point in time when you are able to be open and honest about who you are on the inside and let that reflect on the outside so that you show the entire world who you really are. However, on the other hand, when we decide to shrink ourselves down, we do this in order to become more palatable. We tone down our laughter, we tone down our expressions, and we slowly chip away to the parts that make us us, the parts that make you you, in order to be a curated persona of who you think you're supposed to be in front of everybody else, just to make them feel comfortable. We might even over-explain ourselves or our actions presumptively in order to counter a racial assumption. Let that one sink in. Just let it sink in for a second. This isn't just a simple adjustment, like changing your clothes or changing your shoes, changing your socks. This is a complete fundamental shift away from who your inner self is, what your ego is there to do, and what you decide to present in front of everybody else. And what comes with that is a very steep cost. Sometimes ones we cannot or will not or won't pay back. So let's think about this mental and emotional costs of putting on this mask and taking off this mask. First, there's cognitive dissonance. Think about it this way. You're a sharp, insightful man. But in one setting, you're forced to act less intelligent than your counterparts, just to avoid sounding way too uppity or outside of your class. So think about it. Really think about it. How many times have you been sitting in a setting and you know the answer, but you choose not to say it, and you allow someone else of a different color to say it just so that you don't stand out intellectually? Why? I call it social programming. Because the way you look and what you should do or what you shouldn't do, that stuff is deemed by society. So when you find yourself breaking outside of the mold, now you become a rarity. And with a rarity, sometimes you get struck by the hammer. Or you're a kind, gentle soul, but on the other hand, you have to project to be this hardened, almost soulless type of individual in order to distance people away from you because you don't want them to know who you really are. Me and my gym partner were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago. And we got on the topic of having to overthink about how we make other individuals feel just because the color of our skin. We have to be very cautious, and we have to pay attention to every word that is spoken, every action that is taken, whether that action is intentional or it's subconscious thinking. We have to be mindful about everything that we do, because how we act either determines whether or not some individuals say, that's what I expected because that's what I see on social media and that's what society is expecting them to look like, or we stand outside of the box and we have to say, you know what, I'm going to act this way in order to make them feel more comfortable. And then what ends up happening? You end up leaving that situation, and then you say to yourself, what did I just do? I was not my genuine self. Why? Fear. This constant clash between who you're supposed to be authentically and the mask that you put on to perform in front of everybody else is a direct conflict, an internal conflict. So, the battle of your inner self and your ego, it's exhausting. Time and time again. All this just leads to increased anxiety, frustration, identity issues, identity confusion. So then you start to wonder to yourself, who am I really? What is my purpose? Do I even know myself? And these are all hard questions we have to ask ourselves. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know who you are, and you don't know your purpose, you don't know the reason why you do things, you will align yourself with any and whoever decides to allow you to associate with them. And as soon as you step out of bounds, and as soon as you don't do as they say, now you're the bad guy. And then you're still stuck with the same problem, the identity issue, right? So, second thing we need to consider, and this has been talked about in the episode before and the episode before, is the chronic stress that it puts on you. The mental fatigue, the physical fatigue, the emotional fatigue, the spiritual fatigue. Code switching is a lot of work. In one moment, you're speaking this way, the next moment, you're speaking this way, and then 3 minutes later, you're speaking that way. It takes a lot of work. It's mental gymnastics. It's an emotional and mental drain on your system. You're doing gymnastics constantly. We're talking about a high wire act that requires constant vigilance, because you have to continue to perform how they want you to. You're always on alert. analyzing all social cues, all facial cues. You're analyzing the guy standing by the door, the person going into the bathroom, the person that walks up to you and gives you a head nod. All these little cues you have to constantly focus on. You have to focus on filtering your words. You have slang terminology. You have to watch out for that as well, right? Because we're putting on a picture. It's almost like a performance, right? It's like trying to play on Broadway 24/7, 365. No days off. This stress isn't just a fleeting feeling. It's constant, low-grade hum. It's just a buzzing that just sits right at the base of your skull, and you can just feel it just humming there, just ticking, ticking, ticking in the background. It's like white noise, constantly rolling and rolling and rolling. And what does this do? Elevates your stress level, elevates anxiety, elevates frustration, which in turn increases cortisol, as we've discussed before, which can lead to chronic illnesses. Being in this hyper-vigilant state all the time can lead to burnout, can lead to complications in your relationship, can lead to disconnect with your children. Ultimately, you will crack at some point. The question is how bad, or should I say how deep, is that crack going to be? And what will spill out from it when you do? Next thing we're going to discuss is the emotional fallout. The emotional repression. So just like the first episode I discussed, we have to find a way to be emotionally intelligent, not emotionally driven. See, once you figure out that most of the things you have to deal with in life is a game, and that most of it is based off of how you react, being emotionally driven, then you start to understand that maybe you have to take a step back for a second. Analyze the situation. Let your thoughts and your feelings come back down and level out where it needs to be in any heightened situation. And I'm not talking about fight or flight situation. I'm talking about situations you can step away from. You have time to think situations, and that's what 90% of our problems are. It's time to think. But we turn those into a time to act, in which we don't have to. So, got to give yourself time to think. Got to give yourself time to allow those emotions to come in and to go out. You have to let those flee away. Because when you're busy being a version of yourself that other people accept, there's no room for you to be genuine. There's no room for you to be emotionally connected. There's no room for you to be emotionally intelligent to deal with situations. And that's just the truth. It's the hard truth that we don't want to face. Because we can't truly express ourselves because it might break our character on Broadway. This is why many of us struggle with vulnerability. This is why many of us struggle so much with trying to make genuine connections with friends, with family members, with our spouse, with our children, because we are trained and conditioned to believe that being vulnerable is a weakness. We have become so skilled at wearing this mask that we've even forgotten to take it off at times. Times we just go through life, periods we're just going through life constantly, forgetting that we're wearing this mask and that we haven't even taken it off. Even with the people that we love. even with the people that we say we love or that we claim to care about. So what can we do to break up this cycle? We can't ignore reality. It's about reclaiming our power. It's about putting the control back into our hands. There's a lot of things, a lot of outside factors that you can't control. You can't control whether or not somebody rear ends or T-bones you. If it happens, it happens. You have no control over it. But there are things that you can do in order to reclaim your power back. And the first thing you have to do is you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional about being authentic. That's step number one. We need to be aware of when we're doing it. We have to be able to call ourselves out when we're doing it. Because if we don't, we'll constantly walk around with wearing this mask. We have to call ourselves out first. Because the hardest person to convince that we have changed is ourselves. 1,000 people can tell you, hey, look, you've changed and you've done all these things right. But at the end of the day, it's you looking into the mirror that has to tell yourself that you've done so. So we have to be intentional. Notice if you're shifting your voice when you're around certain individuals. Notice if you're changing up your posture around certain individuals. Notice if you're toning yourself down so that you don't appear to be a certain way. And ask yourself, am I really doing this to protect myself? Or am I doing this out of habit? Am I doing this because this is something that I've been conditioned to do? This self-awareness is paramount to change. It's just like any habit that needs to be broken. It takes time. It takes energy. It takes effort. It takes dedication and commitment to change these things. You can't just say, well, I tried, or I'm trying. It's either you're doing or you're not. It's a harsh reality we have to deal with. Secondly, we must practice being authentic. We have to practice on being ourselves. Best place to start? In the mirror. Best place to start? In the mirror. Looking at yourself. Looking into your own eyes. And being real with yourself. From there, you decide to start using the ability that you've started to foster within yourself to let it out to your closest friends. And as they start to accept you, your family starts to accept you, your spouse, your community, and one by one, you start to become more of the individual that you were designed to be. You start to become more and more like the individual that God made you to be. Allow yourself to be 100% fully you. No filters, no masks, no nonsense. Just you. The raw you. The part of you that you don't want anybody to see. And this is how you begin the healing process of that cognitive dissonance. This is where you start to find yourself being able to separate from who you were to who you want to be. Who society tells you you should be, to what you were designed to be. This is where the process starts. And the more you practice this, the more you practice being authentic, the more you practice doing these things in safe, small spaces, and then starting to grow outwardly, the more comfortable you become, and the more you start breaking down that programming in your brain to act and to be a certain way. and watch how things start changing for you on the inside. It all starts on the inside. You cannot expect that your environment is going to change the inside. It can start to help influence, but just because you wash a car on the outside doesn't mean you cleaned out the trash on the inside. So thirdly, we have to create more spaces. And this is important because we discussed about being intentional. We've discussed practicing it and who has to initiate it. Now we're talking about generating those safe spaces, connection within those safe spaces, finding individuals who have your back 24/7, 365. That's what this whole mission is right now. That's what this whole mission is about. That's what the sanctuary is about. It's about having the conversations that nobody else wants to have. It's about discussing the things that nobody wants to talk about. This is the opportunity for you to grow, right? It's all about growth. It's not about the finish line. It's about growing in every aspect of life. And you don't have to do it all at once because that's not the way it was designed to be. You live, you learn, you change, you act. In that order. And the great thing about the sanctuary and what I'm doing here is that as I'm on this mission, other things are just falling into place, right? So this whole thing started off with me and my partners starting up our coffee business. And I'm going to be the first one to say, I ain't know anything about coffee. Never had any intention on doing it. But one thing that I noticed, especially when me and my boys came together and we started doing this, was that even though we had spent so much time together, we had worked together, we had done all these things together, we still weren't being ourselves. We still weren't. And then slowly but surely we started having these conversations, and it's like, this is probably what needs to happen, is we need to start connecting with other men. We need to start connecting with each other and being real with one another and calling out each other's bullshit. We need to develop an environment, would you say a society, of strong men. We have to. And I'm not talking about strong men that are like, are going to go out and say some wild stuff. I'm talking about men with reserve, with professionalism, but also at the same time about business. Willing to grow and to connect with other individuals who are feeling the same way and who think that they're alone, but they're not. You're not alone. We are all here. And we are all designed to grow together. So, we need to actively seek out and build groups, to build environments, to build structures that don't want us to perform, that don't want us to conform, but want us to be ourselves. Don't let society trick you into acting a certain way just because it tells you you're supposed to do it. Don't allow it to, because the same system that you allow to influence how you act and how you speak and how you control yourself is the same system that wants you to destroy yourself. Point blank, period. So, whether you're joining a men's group, whether you're joining a support group, community organization, or getting on a digital forum, we must create sanctuaries. We must create space for ourselves. We have to be unapologetic, and we have to be serious about it. And the crazy part is as me and my partners have been on this journey, we've come to realize that there are more guys like us out there. So I do want to give a huge thank you and shout out to one of our new acquired partners, True North Adventures. They're in their beginning stages right now, but the idea and the concept of what they have going on right now is something big. It's going to be something that is revolutionary. It's going to allow men to come together as men, where you are, and from there, you will grow to be the best version of yourself through connection, through interdependence on your brother next to you who wants to see you succeed. Because that's all you really need, is you need a handful of men in your corner that want to see you succeed for your kids, for your wife, for your family, and they want to eat with you, and they want to grow with you, whether it's emotionally, physically, spiritually. They want to see you succeed. And right now, what True North Adventures is embarking on, it's a tall task. I looked down and I said, this is a tall task, because society wants us to be dumbed down, wants us to be short, small in stature. But they're doing something big. So as these episodes keep coming, I'll keep giving you guys more and more information on their pursuit. And once they launch, be ready, because it will be a flood. All right. So create your spaces, right? So I'm going to leave you with this. And this is worth remembering. Your worth isn't in how well you fit into somebody else's box. Your worth is set when you sit outside of that box. It's in your unique identity, your voice, and your personality. The most powerful act you can do is show up as yourself, unapologetically. Because when you do, you give others around you the permission to do the same. So let that sink in. The next time you want to put yourself in a box, the next time you want to downplay yourself, the next time you want to downplay your intelligence because you do not want to allow people to see who you really are, because you do not fit the standard of what they believe you should be, because that's what society has made you believe, as well as them. So the mask that we wear, it's a heavy burden, but it's the one that we don't have to carry alone. In the following weeks, we're going to continue exploring this. We're going to continue to challenge these ideas, these social distortions, may you say, about performing and putting on this act in front of everybody. We're going to unpack more of this, and we're going to offer and continue to offer practical solutions. Practical solutions to a problem that can and will be corrected through building genuine brotherhood, camaraderie, and relationships. Being authentic with your mindset and with your heart. So until then, I encourage you to pause and reflect when you're going to put on the mask, and if you need to put on the mask. Because you'll find out, once you find your purpose, once you find your meaning, once you find out who you are, the mask will never come back on again. Just acknowledge the weight that it carries, and just how much weight you have to lift in order to take it off. Join us next week. We've got another one. We're going to be talking about how vulnerability is not a weakness. So until then, find your peace, find your community, find your value, find your sanctuary. So I want to thank, once again, our partners, True North Adventures, for tagging along with us on this mission. Also, shout out to Nubia Coffee, best premium dark roast coffee you're going to find anywhere. So thank you for listening, and this has been The Sanctuary.